Szklanka do połowy pełna. Posłuchaj o tym, co ukryte pod powierzchnią.
Witajcie słuchacze, to jest 85. odcinek podcastu Szklanka do połowy pełna. Kiedy zaczynałem pisać skrypt do tego odcinka, zobaczyłem oczami wyobraźni siebie sprzed kilku lat. Jest zima, 6 rano, a ja znowu zaspałem na pierwszy autobus do pracy. To znaczy, tak naprawdę to nigdzie jeszcze się nie spóźniłem, ale w mojej głowie zawsze chciałem być pierwszy w biurze, żeby pokazać szefostwu, na ile mi zależy, więc każde spóźnienie na pierwszy autobus danego dnia wywoływało u mnie już jakieś irracjonalne poczucie winy. No ale trudno. Szybka toaleta, łyk wody i już za chwilę pędziłem, żeby spędzić 8 godzin w mojej etatowej, biurowej robocie. Pracy, w której bywały dni, że musiałem rzeczywiście zostać po godzinach, żeby skończyć robotę, ale co gorsza, bywały też wcale nierzadko dni, kiedy co chwilę zerkałem na zegarek z nadzieją, że ten dzień już się skończy. Bo wyrobiłem się z moją pracą, ale z uwagi na etat byłem po prostu przyspawany do biurka. A potem zacząłem się zastanawiać, czy taka praca ma dla mnie w ogóle jakikolwiek sens. Zanim jednak wrócimy do mojej opowieści, jak zawsze zapraszam Was do obserwowania Szklanki do połowy pełnej na Spotify, subskrypcji na YouTubie i słuchania mojego podcastu na Apple Podcast. A po odcinku koniecznie odpalcie sobie drugi odcinek dolewki, gdzie w odcinku wideo opowiadam o tym, co nie zmieściło się w tym epizodzie. Po więcej kulis podcastu i dodatkowych treści odwiedźcie koniecznie mój Instagram Szklanka Spotify i TikTok Szklanka do połowy pełna 1. Koniec ogłoszeń, wróćmy do tego zimowego poranka. To nie był jakiś szczególny dzień, który zmienił moje postrzeganie pracy. To był tylko przykład tego, jak dni, które spędzamy w pracy, często zlewają nam się w jednorodną masę, aż orientujemy się, że nasza praca tak naprawdę mogłaby być wykonywana, no wiecie, zdalnie i zadaniowo. I jasne, nie każda, ale taka biurowa w większości, uwierzcie mi, że może tak być wykonywana. Mam jeszcze jedno silne wspomnienie z czasów, gdy pracowałem jeszcze na etacie. Był ciepły dzień, a ja wykonywałem powierzone mi zadanie. No i po tym jak to zrobiłem, szefowa, która je sprawdziła, wezwała mnie do siebie, do swojego gabinetu. Okazało się, że wszystko, co wtedy zrobiłem, roiło się od różnych błędów. Błędów, które wynikały z tego prostego faktu, że byłem w tej pracy niecałe 2 tygodnie, no i niefartownie trafiłem akurat na okres urlopowy, więc nie było ani jednego pracownika z mojego pokoju, który mógłby mnie przeszkolić w zadaniach zlecanych przez szefostwo. Wszystko więc robiłem na ślepo, bo nikomu nie zależało wtedy, żeby mnie przeszkolić. Byłem jednym z setek pracowników, którzy przyszli, popracowali, no i za chwilę na ich miejsce mieli przyjść kolejni. Taka praca. Pamiętam, że jak wróciłem wtedy z gabinetu do mojego pokoju, to trzęsły się pode mną nogi, a kolega z biurka obok powiedział, że moja twarz była blada jak ściana. I to był jeden z punktów zwrotnych, kiedy pomyślałem sobie, że może po prostu nie nadaje się do takiego rodzaju pracy. Parę miesięcy później zdałem ważny dla mnie egzamin i pożegnałem się ze starą pracą. Kiedy teraz wspominam ten czas, to mogę się tylko uśmiechnąć. W jednym tygodniu bywało tak, że za tę samą czynność potrafiłem być publicznie chwalony, by za 2 dni dokładnie za to samo być totalnie skrytykowany. Ale dlaczego wam o tym opowiadam w odcinku o work-life balance? No już tłumaczę. Bo to wszystko, co się tam działo w tamtym miejscu pracy, czyli sztywne godziny pracy, no ktoś dowcipny w ogłoszeniu o pracę napisał, że w tym miejscu jest stosowany elastyczny czas pracy. No cóż, szkoda, że jego elastyczność wynosiła plus minus 1 godzinę. Do tego ciągłe pretensje mimo braku właściwego przeszkolenia personelu oraz dni spędzane na bezsensownym gapieniu się w monitor. To wszystko odkładało się na mojej psychice, relacjach z rodziną, a nawet na moich aktywnościach po pracy. Żyjąc w takim ciągłym napięciu, po pracy najczęściej szedłem na spacer z psem i kładłem się spać na drzemkę. No ale nie taką jak myślicie, kilkuminutową power nap. Moja drzemka trwała zwykle kilka godzin, a potem czekała mnie szybka kolacja, kąpiel, no i sen. Wszystko sprawiało, że każdy weekend był dla mnie tak zwanym wyciskaniem cytryny. No i co to znaczy? No mniej więcej tyle, że od wyjścia z pracy w piątek do późnego wieczoru w niedzielę chciałem zrobić jak najwięcej ciekawych rzeczy. No wiecie, pójść z psem nową trasą po lesie, odwiedzić jakąś galerię sztuki, zobaczyć nowy film w kinie, pospacerować po mieście z żoną, czy pograć w końcu w FIFA do białego rana, tak jak to robiłem za czasów studenckich. I to brzmi fajnie, dopóki nie okaże się, że nie każdemu musi taka filozofia się podobać, w tym mojej żonie. A wszystko to wynikało z absolutnego braku czasu, no i siły na cokolwiek po 8 godzinach spędzonych za biurkiem. Jak na to teraz popatrzę z takiej większej perspektywy, to być może w innych okolicznościach taki tryb życia z ciągłym zmęczeniem w tygodniu i nadrabianiem zaległości z takiego życia społecznego w weekend mógłby doprowadzić mnie do jakiegoś uzależnienia albo ucieczki w używki. Pewnie często tak się właśnie dzieje. Na szczęście w odpowiednim momencie zrezygnowałem z tego typu pracy i przerzuciłem się na pracę, w której to ja jestem sobie sterem, żeglarzem, no i okrętem. I nagle okazało się, słuchajcie, że pracując nawet w kilku różnych miejscach pracy naraz, mogę sobie ustalić, kiedy pracuję, a kiedy odpoczywam. I w końcu odetchnąłem. I to przełożyło się na naprawdę wiele spraw. W pracy przestałem popełniać błędy, a wręcz przeciwnie, zyskałem zaufanie nowych pracodawców i przełożonych, no i aprobatę ludzi, z którymi się teraz otaczam i z którymi pracuję. Przestałem w końcu spać po kilka godzin dziennie w tygodniu, bo teraz sam decyduję, kiedy i ile pracuję i nie jestem aż tak zmęczony. Lubię na przykład pracować sobie nocą, kiedy panuje cisza i spokój i odkąd mam taką możliwość, to często ją wykorzystuję. Do tego duża część tego, co robię, odbywa się zdalnie, więc nie mam już problemów z dojazdami czy powrotami. A wracając do work-life balance, to dzięki tej zmianie zyskałem więcej czasu na pracę kreatywną. Chociażby na ten podcast, którego teraz słuchasz, na tworzenie grafik AI czy działalność internetową. No i nie zrozumcie mnie źle, że jeżeli ktoś pracuje w urzędzie, korporacji czy w innym miejscu, gdzie codziennie trzeba o 7 rano odbić kartę, to jest z tym coś złego. To po prostu nie było dla mnie. Są ludzie, którzy dobrze odnajdują się w takiej rutynie życia, czują się wręcz bezpiecznie, wiedząc, że codziennie robią to samo dokładnie przez taki sam okres, no i serio, good for them. Ja po prostu nie umiałem odnaleźć się w tych sztywnych ramach czasowych, ciągłych terminach, zmieniających się zadaniach, braku wsparcia ze strony przełożonych, no i takim poczuciu, że jesteś tylko jakimś malutkim trybikiem w wielkiej machinie. Jedyne, co wspominam dobrze z tego okresu, to naprawdę fajni ludzie, których poznałem wtedy na swojej drodze. Ludzie różnych płci, w różnym wieku, wyznający zupełnie różne wartości i ci wszyscy ludzie rozumieli jeden prosty fakt, że skoro już jesteśmy na siebie skazani i widzimy się częściej niż swoje rodziny, bo często zostawaliśmy dłużej w pracy, to bądźmy dla siebie po prostu mili. Kilka z tych znajomości zostało ze mną do dzisiaj i to chyba największy plus tamtej pracy. A jak wygląda dzisiaj mój obecny work-life balance? Zadaniowa praca w kancelarii radcy prawnego w tygodniu, prowadzenie zajęć ze studentami w weekendy na 2 uczelniach, a pomiędzy tym tworzenie podcastu i kanału na YouTube. I w końcu na to wszystko mam czas. Okazuje się, że można się pojawić 2-3 razy w tygodniu w biurze, a resztę zadań spokojnie można zrobić na home office. Kojarzycie to uczucie, kiedy wracacie z wakacji i w końcu możecie skorzystać z własnej toalety? Ja mam tak praktycznie codziennie. Z kolei dzięki zupełnie innej pracy, czyli pracy na uczelniach wyższych, poznałem wielu niezwykłych ludzi. I to nie mam na myśli tylko profesorów czy innych nauczycieli akademickich, ale także głodnych wiedzy studentów. Dzięki jednej ze studentek udało mi się nawet przeprowadzić wywiad na tym podcaście i w tym miejscu odsyłam Was do wystrzałowego wywiadu na temat łucznictwa. Z kolei trzecia część mojej pracy to właśnie to, czego teraz słuchasz, czyli mój podcast. Wielu może się wydawać, że to prosta sprawa usiąść tak przed mikrofonem, nagrać parę zdań, no i wrzucić do internetu. Ale uwierzcie mi, jest z tym trochę roboty. Produkcja każdego odcinka od pomysłu przez nagranie, montaż, postprodukcję, po publikację to najczęściej kilka dni roboczych, ale pracując właśnie na home office wreszcie mogę pozwolić sobie na dobre zaplanowanie pracy przed każdym odcinkiem. Wcześniej wszystko od pracy kreatywnej przez nagrania po montaż i publikację robiłem właśnie w weekend w ramach tego mojego wyciskania cytryny. No i mam wrażenie, że szklanka też zyskała na tym, że mogę temu projektowi poświęcić więcej czasu. Czy to znaczy, że nie pracując na etacie stałem się leniwy i wygodnicki? Wręcz przeciwnie, stałem się zdecydowanie bardziej zorganizowany i dokładny. Przez to, że częściej pracuję z domu, mogę załatwiać też wiele spraw, które wcześniej sprawiały mi kłopot. Kurier ma przyjść konkretnego dnia z paczką? Spoko. Innym razem mam chociażby przegląd kominiarski, który został zaplanowany na środę o godzinie 12. Nie ma problemu. Nowy gość do wywiadu ma czas akurat rano w czwartek? Śmiało, wpadaj. A może listonosz chciałby wrzucić awizo po jednym dzwonku? Nie na mojej warcie, stary. Dzięki uwolnieniu tego mojego czasu zyskałem władzę nad tym, co, jak i ile robię. No i uwierzcie mi, nie oddałbym tego za nic na świecie. A do tego mam teraz zdecydowanie więcej czasu dla siebie i swoich pasji. Częściej mogę sobie polatać dronem, nagrać podcast, wyjść z Lucy na spacer, napisać post na Instagramie albo nagrać wideo na YouTube. Przy okazji wziąłem na siebie większą część obowiązków domowych, takich jak wyrzucanie śmieci, ogarnianie zmywarki, odkurzanie itd., itd. W końcu trzeba dbać o swój home office. A jeśli wy słuchacie tego podcastu po 8 godzinach pracy, to napiszcie mi w komentarzach, gdzie pracujecie i co sprawia, że to, co robicie, daje wam satysfakcję. Jak wam się udaje zachować tę równowagę między życiem zawodowym a prywatnym? Jestem ciekaw, czy są wśród was osoby, które na przykład prowadzą własną działalność gospodarczą, co sprawia, że są w pracy praktycznie 24 na dobę, a może pracujecie twórczo i w ogóle nie liczycie godzin spędzonych nad jakimś projektem. Może wreszcie słuchają tego odcinka osoby, które były bohaterami moich dzisiejszych historii. Jeśli tak, to życzę wam wszystkiego najlepszego. I to by było na tyle w 85. odcinku podcastu Szklanka do połowy pełna. Mam nadzieję, że wzbudzę w was refleksję na temat work-life balance. Ta filozofia nie oznacza lenistwa i braku zaangażowania w waszą pracę, a raczej powinna dać nam do myślenia, czy nie powinniśmy czasem spojrzeć z dystansem na to, co robimy i czy nasza praca ma dla nas odpowiednią wartość. Tymczasem bądźcie bezpieczni, uśmiechajcie się, a my słyszymy się jak zawsze już niedługo.
Today we're diving into something pretty universal, actually. It's that really tricky balance between work and, well, life, the whole work-life balance philosophy. You know that feeling, right? Sunday night, maybe? Or that first alarm on Monday, that little bit of dread creeping in. Or maybe it's Friday evening and you just feel completely wiped out, like, where did the week even go? Yeah, I think most of us have been there, or we definitely know someone who has. So our mission today is to really explore the positive side of getting that balance right. We want to move past just thinking about it as, avoiding burnout. It's more than that. This deep dive is about how you can actually thrive, how you can get your energy back, maybe find more creativity, more personal fulfillment. It really boils down to understanding that core idea. We work to live, not live to work. That shift in perspective, it can change everything. We're going to look at what you genuinely gain from a balanced life. Not just feeling calmer, but real tangible benefits in your work, your relationships, just your overall life. And guiding us today is this really powerful firsthand story. It's from someone who went through a massive shift in how they approached work. Their journey is kind of our map for this exploration. It shows that stark contrast, between work just taking over everything and work actually fitting into a life well lived.
That's such a critical point, this idea. Work to live, it's not exactly new, but wow, has it become more relevant now. The world feels so demanding, doesn't it? Always on. And what's really interesting here, like you said, it's not just about, say, cutting back hours. That's often the first thought, but it's a bit simplistic. It's really about optimizing your whole life, your time, sure, but also your energy, your mental focus, your emotional reserves. It pushes back against that ingrained idea that just working more hours automatically means you achieve more, which often isn't true at all. So yeah, this deep dive will unpack the gains, things like real mental clarity, which helps you make better decisions, by the way, and finding that deeper sense of personal fulfillment that honestly a lot of people think is impossible within a demanding career. It's about intentionally designing things, so your work supports your life, fits into it, rather than just overwhelming it. This story gives us a kind of blueprint showing how tough experiences can actually push you to make choices that lead to a much richer and more productive life in the end.
That sets the stage perfectly. Okay, so let's get into the source's story. Where did it all begin? They paint this picture, and it's probably going to sound familiar to a lot of people, of a work experience that was just draining. Picture this. It's winter, alarm goes off at 6 a.m., still pitch black outside, and speaker says they'd wake up, often with this immediate sense of guilt, like they'd overslept even if they hadn't. And this guilt, it was kind of irrational, right? But it came from this intense, maybe unspoken pressure to be the absolute first person in the office, to show the bosses how dedicated you were, to look indispensable, like this silent race to prove your commitment before the day even properly started, all driven by wanting to be seen, valued, fully plugged into the corporate machine. So, quick wash, gulp of water, and off they went. rushing to spend 8 hours at this fixed office job. And here's a really telling part. Some days, okay, they had to stay late finishing tasks. That happens. But what was really soul-destroying, and apparently quite frequent, were the days when all the main tasks were done, deliverables sent off, everything finished. And yet, they'd just be sitting there, constantly glancing at the clock, just wishing the day would end. Their work was done, their energy totally spent. But because of those fixed hours and that, pressure to be seen to be working, they felt glued to the desk. It stopped being about actual productivity. It became about performing presence, performing dedication that wasn't really there because there was nothing left to do. It was this feeling of being trapped, right? Wasting hours. That's when they started thinking deep down, does this even make sense? Is this really living?
It's so striking how quickly that establishes this pattern. It's not just the explicit demands, is it? It's that unspoken stuff, that expectation to always be available, or like you said, performing presence. It's not about real output anymore. And that's not just one person's story. It's pretty widespread, especially in cultures that haven't moved past that old visible hours mindset. If you connect that to the bigger picture, needing to be physically there long after you're productive, or feeling guilty about your arrival time, it often signals a lack of trust from management, doesn't it? And the toll that takes emotionally, psychologically, it's huge. It breeds disengagement, resentment even. It really makes you ask, how many people feel that pressure? To look busy, even when they're not, to seem dedicated when they're just idling. And what's the real cost on their well-being, their creativity, their life quality? It's a system that kind of accidentally rewards burnout over actual efficiency, leaves you feeling totally drained.
Exactly. And it wasn't just the day-to-day grind wearing them down. There's another story here, a really powerful one. It shows this deep lack of support, that feeling of being completely disposable, just, a cog in the machine. They remembered this warm day. They'd just finished a task, feeling pretty good about it, accomplished. Simple enough, right? But then the boss checks it, calls them in, and the news is just brutal. Everything they did, riddled with errors, completely wrong. Imagine that feeling, just plummeting. But here's the kicker, the reason for the errors. It wasn't incompetence. They'd only been on the job for 2 weeks. And crucially, it was during vacation time. Lots of senior people were out. There was literally no one available to give them proper training or guidance on the task management had assigned. They were just thrown in, expected to figure it all out alone because, and this is the sad part, they felt no one cared about training me. That realization just hit them like a ton of bricks. They were just one of hundreds, easily replaced. No one was actually invested in helping them succeed or grow. It's incredibly dehumanizing, isn't it? To feel like your only value is transactional and your development just doesn't matter. They describe the physical reaction, legs trembling just uncontrollably. A colleague even said their face was pale as a wall when they got back to their desk, like all the blood had just drained out. It wasn't just a bad day, it was one of those moments that sticks with you.
Yeah.
It led to that awful internal thought, I am not suitable for this kind of work. And adding to the chaos, making it even harder, was the inconsistency. 1 week they might get praised publicly for something, held up as an example. Then literally 2 days later, they could get chewed out for the exact same action. It just paints this picture of a really confusing, untrustworthy, and frankly, psychologically unsafe place to work. No stability.
That story really hits home because it touches on challenges so many people face. Connecting it to the bigger picture, like you said, these anecdotes show a really common and frankly damaging issue in organizations. This intense focus on just output, sheer output, often forgetting about the individual's well-being, proper onboarding, actual professional growth. When you throw new people in without support or give them wildly inconsistent feedback, you get exactly what the source described. Feelings of inadequacy, huge stress, feeling disposable, that cog in the machine feeling, and that lack of a supportive system. It directly feeds into high turnover rates, disengagement, low morale. We see it across industries, and it completely blows up that assumption that long hours and high pressure automatically mean better results. Often it's the opposite, as we see here. It's usually a sign of inefficient processes, maybe poor management training, or just a lack of basic HR support. When people feel disposable, why would they be intrinsically motivated? Their ability to perform well, to innovate, even just to enjoy their work, just tanks. This isn't just about feeling bad. It's a fundamental mismatch between job demands and the support needed to meet them. And that hits both productivity and mental health hard. A real lesson in how culture impacts the bottom line.
And those negative effects, they didn't just magically disappear when they clocked out at 5 p.m. No, the speaker talks about this constant tension that wasn't just at work. It seeped into everything. Their psychology, their family life. Imagine carrying that weight, feeling like a cog, feeling drained, undervalued home with you every single day. Their evenings weren't really evenings anymore. They became this exhausting recovery ritual. The routine they describe really shows the toll. They'd walk the dog, maybe a brief escape, but then right after getting home, they'd crash. They call it a drzemka, a nap. But this wasn't like a quick 20-minute power nap. No, this could last for hours. It was like their body and mind were just desperately trying to shut down and recover. Then wake up groggy, quick dinner, maybe a bath, straight to bed. The entire weekday evening, gone, consumed by just trying to recuperate. There was basically zero time or energy left for genuine connection, hobbies, anything meaningful with loved ones. So this constant draining during the week led to something they call, and it's such a vivid phrase, lemon squeezing weekends. You can just picture it, right? Friday evening hits. But instead of relaxing, it's this frantic scramble. From Friday night all the way through Sunday night, they'd try to cram in every interesting thing imaginable. Like they were trying to make up for a whole week of lost life. Trying new forest routes for the dog walk, not really for enjoyment, but like a desperate escape. Rushing through art galleries, movies, quick city walks with their wife. Every activity felt loaded with this pressure to compensate for lost time. Sometimes it even meant staying up all night playing FIFA, just escaping, maybe numbing the dread of Monday coming back around. And they admit this philosophy, it wasn't really a choice, it was survival, born purely from having no time, no energy, no mental space left after those long days glued to the desk. It's that feeling of deficit, always playing catch up, that really captures the imbalance. It wasn't living, just surviving for the weekend, basically. Trapped.
That phrase, lemon squeezing, is just perfect, isn't it? It captures exactly how that chronic work-life imbalance twists your free time. Weekends become this desperate attempt to make up for a week that completely depleted you. Energy, joy, time, all gone. And it's just not sustainable. It's like compensatory leisure. Often leads to what some call a recovery deficit. Your body and mind just never really catch up on rest. And the speaker's own reflection on this, that this constant fatigue, this desperate need for escape, this lack of fulfillment, that could have easily tipped into something worse, like addiction or substance abuse, that really highlights the serious mental health risks. When you push people that hard, the brain starts looking for any escape, even unhealthy ones. So yeah, it's not just about being tired. It's a whole lifestyle that if you don't address it, can seriously undermine your well-being everywhere, mentally, emotionally, physically, even in your relationships. The human spirit needs more than just a frantic burst of activity on the weekend. It needs consistent nourishment, real rest, actual balance. This story is a stark warning, really, about letting work consume your weekdays, forcing your personal life into this scramble for leftover scraps of time and energy. It leaves you feeling unfulfilled, always on edge, maybe near burnout. Underscores how vital proactive boundaries and self-care are.
Such a critical point. That imbalance runs deep, affecting the whole fabric of life, not just the job. Which brings us right to the turning point in the story. That moment where feeling trapped finally pushed them to make a change. After putting up with that draining, unsupportive environment, something shifted. They passed a big professional exam. And the way they describe it, it wasn't just about the qualification itself. It felt like a psychological boost. Gave them the leverage, maybe just the confidence, the validation they needed. And with that, they found the courage to leave that old job behind. And this wasn't just swapping one job for another similar one. No, it was a fundamental change in their whole approach to work and really to life. They talk about moving to a new way of working where, and I love this phrase, it says so much, I am the helmsman, sailor, and ship. It's such a powerful metaphor, right? No longer just a passenger or that cog in someone else's machine. Now they were in control, charting their own course, making the decisions, owning their professional future. That moment of reclaiming agency, it just completely redefined their relationship with work. Set the stage for everything else. Turned them from being reactive to being the architect of their own life.
Helmsman, sailor, and ship. That really does capture it perfectly. The essence of self-determination. What's fascinating is how immediately agency becomes the key theme, that sense of taking control. And if you connect that to psychology, it lines up perfectly. Autonomy, having control, is a primary driver, maybe the primary driver for job satisfaction, well-being, fulfillment. It's huge. It wasn't just about escaping bad. It was about actively building something better, using the hard lessons learned. It fits that idea that knowledge is most valuable when you actually apply it. Here, they applied the painful knowledge of what didn't work to build a new path, a path that felt right for them. It wasn't about finding some magical, perfect job that already existed. It was about designing a work life where they set the terms, the timing, the nature of the work, that level of self-direction. It's increasingly seen as vital for mental health, engagement, sustained productivity. It lets you align your work with your values, your energy, your life goals. Fosters a sense of purpose beyond just the salary. This pivot really embodies working to live. Prioritizing personal needs and well-being as part of professional success, not as something separate or secondary. It also touches on career resilience. Having different ways to contribute makes you more adaptable.
And once they made that shift, embraced that autonomy, the positive changes were almost immediate and pretty dramatic. Such a stark contrast to before. Their professional performance improved, and just their overall sense of well-being shot up. They mentioned not making those simple, frustrating errors anymore, the kind that happened in the old high-stress, no-support job. Instead, they started gaining trust, getting genuine approval from new employers, new colleagues, which must have felt incredibly validating after feeling so disposable. And ironically, that trust probably fueled even better performance, right? Because that psychological weight of fear and inadequacy was just gone. But maybe one of the most telling changes, those multi-hour Drzemka naps during the week, completely disappeared. That's not just a small perk. That signals a massive shift in energy levels. Why? Because, as they say, they now decide when and how much to work. That freedom let them find their own rhythm, work when they felt most energized. For instance, they actually prefer working at night sometimes, when it's quiet, peaceful. When their focus is best, creativity flows. Plus, the huge practical benefit of remote work. No more commuting nightmares, no packed buses, no traffic jams. That alone frees up hours and cuts down daily stress massively. These aren't small things, they're fundamental quality of life improvements.
It shows such a clear, direct link, doesn't it, between having autonomy and how well you perform. When you give people control over their environment, their schedule, those stress responses, the ones that mess with concentration or productivity, they just decrease significantly. And what fills that space? Often it's a real sense of ownership, stronger motivation from within, sharper focus, which naturally leads to better quality work, more innovative thinking. The fact they can choose to work at night, it's not about slacking off. It's about working smarter, aligning with their natural chronotype, their body's internal clock and energy patterns. That kind of optimized approach means more sustained energy, better creativity, and work just feels less draining. It's respecting your own rhythms instead of fighting them in a rigid schedule that might actually be counterproductive. It's moving from just surviving the workday to actually thriving in it.
And building on that freedom, their current work setup is really interesting. It's like a portfolio of different things, which seems key to the balance. They work for a legal advisor's office, but it's super flexible. Only needs to be physically in the office maybe 2 or 3 times a week. The rest, done from home. Then, on weekends, they teach students at 2 universities, which sounds like a great way to use different skills and engage with fresh ideas. And of course, there's this show, The Deep Dive, and their YouTube channel. Creating content, managing it all, pouring energy into that. And this whole setup brings these little everyday freedoms. Small things, maybe, but they add up. Things that rigid office life just doesn't allow. They mentioned something so relatable, the simple joy of being able to use your own toilet regularly. It sounds funny, maybe trivial, but think about it. It's a symbol, isn't it, of comfort, privacy, control over your own space. It just highlights those simple but profound benefits of being the master of your own time and environment. Daily life and work can actually blend smoothly, reducing friction, making everything easier, reclaiming those little bits of personal autonomy.
That portfolio approach, it really does raise an interesting question about work models, doesn't it? Is the traditional full-time one-employer setup always the best? Or can this kind of portfolio career offer more resilience, maybe more diverse skill development, and ultimately deeper satisfaction? Because the flexibility allows for growth in different areas, but also just personal enrichment. Like they mentioned, meeting interesting people through teaching professors, engaged students, that cross-pollination of ideas. It even led to unexpected things like that podcast interview about archery they mentioned. One part of their work enriching another, almost by accident. So it's not just about income streams. It's about weaving together this richer tapestry of experiences and connections. That nourishes you way beyond just the paycheck. When you control your time, you can genuinely engage with different interests, different passions. It creates a much more holistic life, broadens your horizons, exposes you to new things, keeps you curious and creative. That fosters a deeper sense of purpose, where work feels more like an extension of who you are, rather than just this separate, draining duty. It's like diversifying your life satisfaction, not just your finances.
And speaking of creative spirit, the podcast itself, The Deep Dive, is a perfect example of how this balance fuels creativity. They're quick to point out, and rightly so, how much work actually goes into a podcast. It's not just chatting into a mic, is it? You've got the idea, the research, recording, editing, which can be super intricate post-production, getting it published. They reckon it's several days of solid, focused work per episode. It takes real effort and thought. But here's the key difference. Before, all that creative work, it was jammed into those lemon-squeezing weekends, rushed, forced into the gaps left by the demanding office job, done out of necessity, not ideal conditions. Now, with the flexibility, working from home, real control over the schedule, they can plan it properly, allocate dedicated, uninterrupted time for each episode's work, and they genuinely feel the quality of the deep dive has improved because of it. It's deeper, more polished, because they can give it the focused, deliberate time it needs. It's such a clear example. True work-life balance doesn't mean less output. Often, when you're aligned and energized, it means better output, especially for creative work.
That's absolutely fascinating. Because that deliberate planning, which comes directly from having control of your time, it clearly fosters better creative work, deeper thinking. It connects right into that psychological idea of the flow state. You know, when you get completely absorbed in something, distractions fade, time kind of disappears, and your productivity, your creativity, they just soar. It's like peak performance, where your skills perfectly meet the challenge. When you're not desperately trying to squeeze creativity into exhausted moments, but can dedicate real focused time, the quality just naturally goes up. Your brain has space to connect ideas, generate new things, refine everything properly. It also really underscores that it's not just about the quantity of time you spend, especially on creative or intellectual stuff. It's the quality of that time, the energy you bring to it. When you're not wiped out from a draining week, your mind is clearer, ideas flow better, your ability to execute with precision and insight is just way higher. That improvement they see in the podcast. It's a powerful testament to the often underestimated benefits that real balance brings to creative work. It turns it from a chore into something genuinely enjoyable and impactful. Allows for intention, not just reaction.
Which leads to a really crucial point. It challenges that common myth about flexibility and work-life balance. You know, the idea that if you have that much control, that much autonomy over your schedule, it must mean you're slacking off, right? But the speaker totally pushes back on that, says very clearly, on the contrary, I became much more organized and precise. It might sound backwards to some, but it makes total sense. When you're in charge, when your success rests on your own time management, you naturally become more intentional, more accountable, more strategic about how you use your time. Empowerment breeds responsibility. And they list these really concrete benefits from having that time freedom, practical everyday stuff that used to be a huge pain, like actually being home for a courier delivery, avoiding those sorry we missed you slips in the trek to the depot, or scheduling a chimney sweep for noon on a Wednesday without using up a precious vacation day or stressing about juggling everything. Need to interview a podcast guest who can only do Thursday morning. Before, impossible. Now, shimi ho, watash. Sure, come on over. Easy. And my personal favorite being there so the mailman doesn't just ring once and leave that notice. Actually getting your mail when it arrives. A relatable win. These might seem like small things, but add them all up. It's a massive drop in daily stress. A huge increase in just life flowing more easily. And the ultimate gain, as they put it so powerfully. Thanks to the liberation of my time, I gained power over what, how, and how much I do. And believe me, I wouldn't give it up for anything in the world.
It's not about working less hours necessarily. It's about working better, smarter, and living more fully, more intentionally. It's reclaiming agency over your own life.
That just illustrates it perfectly. Real work-life balance. It's not about laziness at all. It's about working smarter, working with real intention. It's about having genuine power, sovereignty over your own time, which lets you manage all of life's demands work, personal stuff much better, much more smoothly. When you're not constantly exhausted, just reacting, stuck to someone else's clock, you can be proactive, organized, precise, just like the speaker found. Moving from being managed to managing yourself, it unlocks huge efficiency and satisfaction. And it ripples outwards, doesn't it? Beyond just yourself. They mentioned taking on more around the house, trash, dishwasher, vacuuming, because as they joke, got to take care of your home office. But that highlights a really important, often missed benefit. When one person finds balance, it often benefits the whole household, can lead to a fairer split of chores, a calmer home environment, better relationships. It's a truly holistic improvement, good for everyone involved.
Which brings us right back to the core philosophy driving this whole transformation. Work-life balance, and it's worth saying again, is not about laziness and lack of commitment to work. Absolutely not. It's really about respecting your own time, your own energy. And it should make us all stop and think, shouldn't it? Pause, maybe look at what we do with a bit of distance, gain some perspective, and really ask, Does my work have the right kind of value for me? Beyond the salary, beyond what others expect, does it actually serve my life, or is it just consuming it? Now, this isn't saying there's only one right way. The speaker makes that clear too. Some people genuinely thrive on routine, structure maybe in certain corporate roles, public service, jobs needing constant presence. And as they say, good for them. If that works, great. The real key, the wisdom here, is that it's not about forcing everyone into one mold. It's about finding what works for you. It's a personal journey, right? Continuously aligning your work with your life, making sure your job genuinely supports your purpose and gives you energy rather than just taking it all away. It's about self-awareness, conscious choices.
And that really brings us to the crucial question, maybe the existential one, for each of us. How do we define value in our work? Is it just the paycheck? Or is it the impact we have? The learning and growth, the flexibility it gives us to live our lives, the connections we make, or something else entirely, something deeply personal? There isn't one right answer. That's the whole point this journey shows. It's personal, and it probably changes over time as we change. It's a good reminder, too, that balance isn't some fixed destination you arrive at and then you're done. It's dynamic. It's an ongoing process of aligning work with your values, your needs as they shift. It really pushes us to think critically about our own relationship with work, to ask, am I truly working to live, or have I fallen into living to work? And if it feels like the latter, if that cycle of drain and lemon squeezing sounds familiar, what small intentional shifts could you maybe start making, even tiny ones? It's about intentional living, really, making sure work supports your well-being and fulfillment rather than undermining it, building a life that feels integrated, feels whole.
What an incredible story our speaker shared today. It really took us on that journey, didn't it? From feeling like that disposable cog in a draining office job, fighting exhaustion, tension, to a life now built around autonomy, being more organized, finding more creativity, and just this deep sense of personal fulfillment. And all of it fundamentally came from flipping that perspective, work to live. Moving from those desperate lemon-squeezing weekends to having the actual freedom to align work with energy, passions, daily life, even those small conveniences that make such a difference, it really shows the power of taking back control. So now, turning it over to you, our listener. As you've heard this deep dive, the story of transformation, what really stood out for you, what parts resonated with your own life, your own experiences, and maybe the bigger question, how does your work right now allow you to truly live? Does it support your passions, your relationships, your well-being? Or does it feel more like a constant drain? Definitely something worth reflecting on as you think about your own path, striving for a life that feels genuinely balanced and fulfilling.
Yeah, this whole journey prompts a really vital question for all of us, especially today, with the world pushing us to do more, beyond more. How can we, each of us, intentionally design our lives so work serves our living instead of just consuming it? How do we create this space not just to get through the week, but to actually thrive, to pursue passions, nurture relationships, find joy in the everyday things that make life worth living? Maybe think about one small thing, one tiny intentional step you could take this week, just to nudge your work and life a little more into harmony, or even just pay attention. What activities, at work or outside it, genuinely give you satisfaction, give you energy? The journey to balance is personal, it's ongoing, and it starts with that awareness, those small, deliberate choices.
I to by było na tyle w kolejnym odcinku podcastu Szklanka do połowy pełna. Pamiętajcie, żeby zaobserwować podcast na Spotify i wystawić ocenę 5 gwiazdek. Jeśli wolicie oglądać treści na YouTube, to zasubskrybujcie kanał Szklanka do połowy pełna podcast. Bądźcie bezpieczni, uśmiechajcie się i słyszymy się już niedługo.